I mean, when you start describing all of those things, there's really not much left to be good at if you want to have success in the NFL.
Welcome into the NFL on Fox podcast presented by Verizon. The NFL powered by Verizon 5G. And this is the Week 3 preview. I am your host, Dave Helman, of course. Welcome back to the show as we get ready for another loaded weekend. So much at stake. We're going to talk about it. 0-3, not a hole you can afford to fall into. 3-0, we're dreaming big. We're thinking playoffs. Narratives are starting to come together already. So excited to dive into them. If you haven't, make sure you're subscribed to the show, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you prefer to get your podcasts. You can find us there. We've got a social handle at NFL on Fox Pod, wherever you prefer to get your social media. You can find us there, engage with us, maybe find the YouTube channel, leave a comment. We'll try to fire back at you, provided, be kind-ish, try, maybe. I know I disrespected your team, but we can get into that, and we will get into that. A loaded Week 3 slate, an even better preview show, in my maybe slightly biased opinion. Peter Schrager is back. Welcoming Peter back to the show to preview several of this weekend's biggest matchups. So much to dive into with Dallas-Baltimore, Detroit-Arizona, a big game in the desert that maybe not everybody saw coming. How about the Bryce Young situation in Carolina and what that means for the Panthers against Las Vegas? So much to get to with Peter. My buddy Ben Arthur's coming on to talk about two huge matchups in the AFC South. But let's get this show started in style. Our good buddy Greg Olsen has one of the games of the weekend in the early window on Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles reeling from a heartbreaking loss to Atlanta the other night, going down to New Orleans to face the undefeated Saints, who have already made a hell of a statement in this early NFL season, but taking down both of the big NFC East powers, the Cowboys and Eagles, back to back. What a statement that would be. Greg is on the call with Joe Davis this weekend, and we had a chance to catch up with him about it. All right, Week 3, Philadelphia Eagles going down to face the New Orleans Saints in a game. I would say this looked like a good game anyway, but after this incredibly hot start by the New Orleans Saints, looks even better than it did at the start of the season. Joined now by Greg Olsen. And Greg, I love having a chance to ask you these types of questions. It's easy to ooh and ah and say the scheme in New Orleans is incredible. And oh my God, the Shanahan tree, the scheme is at work. I can tell you the Saints are leading the league in play action. I know that much, but is it that simple? Like when we talk about the Saints scheme, what exactly is working so well that these guys have scored 91 points in 2 games?
Well, I think when you score 91 points in 2 games, everything's working well. But let's break it down, right? So I think when you get in to study them, we've seen the struggles of this New Orleans Saints offense over the last couple of years. We know they can play defense. We know that's been the side of the ball with Dennis Allen. They've been pretty consistent. It's just been such a slog on the offensive side of the ball. So they bring in Kubiak, and obviously he's coming from the best tree in football. It is not a mystery why all these guys coming from the Shanahan tree are finding success pretty quickly, right? I mean, look what McDaniels did with Tua in Miami. Look what Bobby Slowick did in year 1 last year going to the Houston Texans. I mean, you can go down this tree, obviously LaFleur and McVay a little bit more removed, but this tree is the most quarterback friendly and it's the most offensive line friendly. And what I mean by that is they can generate deep passing game, which is the number one factor every offense in the league is striving for. They want explosive plays. Traditionally speaking, that happens in the passing game. That's why every defense is trying to stop explosive passes. No one's been able to stop those passes. New Orleans does not throw the ball very much. They are very run heavy, but you can get away with being super run heavy when you do throw the ball on play action. Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, the downfield accuracy of Derek Carr in that passing game is what makes them able to stay in the run, able to kind of slow the game down and still score points. So protect their offensive line. That was a big
Absolutely.
kind of area of concern. How are they going to be any good? Okay, they moved Trevor Penning, first rounder from a couple years ago, at left tackle to right tackle. He's settled in pretty nice. They add a couple free agents. They draft a first round talent, make him a left tackle from Oregon State. Like, it's a good offensive line that becomes a even better offensive line because it's very little drop back pass. It's under center play action, a lot of good protection schemes that take the stress off the protectors. And they have legitimate, rare downfield speed and a really versatile running game with Kamara and Taysom Hill. I mean, when you start describing all of those things, there's really not much left to be good at if you want to have success in the NFL.
Without getting too far into the weeds, and you nailed it. I mean, like the thing that gave me pause about the Saints was watching that offensive line last year. And I know they drafted Talisa Fuaga in the first round, but it still felt like a huge hurdle to overcome. And you look at it, even in week two, like the Cowboys, according to the metrics, are like putting pressure on the quarterback, and it just doesn't seem to matter. Is it just the threat of the run game? Like you said, there's not that much true drop back. Like, if there's a simple thing that allows this offensive line to elevate, what do you think it is?
Well, I think anytime you call a Shanahan game, a McVay game, maybe not so much McVay anymore. He's kind of transitioned away from it now with Stafford, but I saw it last week with Green Bay with Matt LaFleur. The entire idea of that scheme is they want to operate, I like to call them 50-50 downs. Some people call them run downs, whatever you call them. They want to operate in as high a percentage of run down to distances. So what are running down to distances? 1st and 10, 2nd and less than 5, 3rd and 2. Those are all run 50-50 downs where my threat of run and my threat of pass is equal. And that puts a lot of stress on the defense. Do you want to play me in high shells and try to keep Shaheed and Olave from running over the top? I have a very multiple and effective run game that is not just good because I get yards. It's good because it can generate explosive plays. And that's really what matters with a run game, is if you can get run explosives, now it's in the picture of being as effective efficiency-wise as the passing game. That's what everyone's searching. So that's what really helps them. Now, do they want to operate in 3rd and 11, 3rd and 9? There's not many teams in the league that want to operate like that unless you have Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen at quarterback. So every other team is searching for run down. So it's 1st and 2nd down efficiency, continue to stay ahead of the chunks. And when you do throw it, you got to complete them. And now, is that sustainable? Can you continue to hit Shaheed for 50-yard touchdowns every single game? They're going to try, of course, but it's low percentage. But so far, they've done a good job. So that's the secret sauce. That's, in my opinion, what every offense should be trying to do. Get under center on 1st down. Keep yourself in run downs. Don't stress your protection by being a drop back shotgun team until you have to on 3rd down. That's how we're seeing teams win in the NFL. And again, some of the best, most efficient offenses in the NFL are all running some version of that system.
I'm sure it's not going to look this beautiful all season long, but if it's even close, it's a tough recipe to stop. Especially, my favorite stat going around right now is that Rashid Shaheed's 11 pro touchdowns have come from 51 yards away on average from the end zone. So yeah, I mean, you can talk about loading up the box to stop the run and make it tougher on Derek Carr, but I think you do that at your own risk, right?
Well, and I think right now there's a really interesting conversation going on around the league that you're in essence alluding to, which is not so much just relevant to this game as much as it is the state of the NFL now, which is, why do we see the run game making such a comeback, right? Years ago, people have posted all these reports about, average yards per game, passing yards and all that. But the point that people are making is, yes, as passing yards come down, so is scoring. What defenses are realizing is, in the old days, I couldn't let you run for 100 yards, or that was, oh my God, we can't win if we give up 100 yards. Last week in the Green Bay game, Matt LaFleur put together as good of a run package as we've seen in the NFL level. It was like a hybrid college, single wing, counter, veer. It was really fun to watch. And Malik Willis ran it really well. Halfway through the 4th quarter, they had 13 points. So teams are realizing right now, do I have to be, yes, my run numbers are great, but I'm so much better I'm so much better at defending the pass, because at the end of the day, we're not trying to keep yards down. We're trying to keep yards that lead to points. And what we know about the NFL, that is through the air. So that's what we're seeing across the league. It's not that teams are saying running the ball is better. It's you're running the ball is becoming easier because to a degree, defenses are saying, run the ball at me. At the end of the day, you go less than 50% in the red zone and you settle for a bunch of field goals in the fourth quarter, you're not going to have over 20 points.
I think that's a perfect segue because we kind of saw that play out on Monday night as well. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons ran the ball all over Philly. And if not for some very unique circumstances, the Eagles probably win that game. Obviously, they did not. Credit to Kirk Cousins for that. But Atlanta's, it seemed like Philly was willing to give up whatever on the ground to limit those explosive plays, at least until the last few minutes. What did you make of that? What do you make of what we've seen from this Philly defense heading into a game where it very well might be more of the same?
Yes, remember Vic Fangio, he left the Dolphins on his own accord because he wanted to take that job. Sirianni's replacing both of his coordinators. He's got Vic Fangio on the defensive side of the ball. He's got Kellen Moore. Obviously, we all know the longtime Dallas Cowboy, spent 1 year with the Chargers, and now he's obviously in Philadelphia. So 2 new coordinators, still feeling that out. But that's Vic Fangio's style defense. Vic Fangio is one of the people, back to his days in Chicago, who really cracked the code, so to speak, on how to defend modern day passing offenses. High shell umbrellas, tackle underneath, be great open field tacklers, rush the passer. You're going to give up yards. You're going to give up underneath coverages, but we're not going to let you throw the ball over our head. Now, it hasn't always been that. Again, it's only been a 2-week sample size, but in general, that's what Vic Fangio's defenses pride themselves on. That's the foundation they're built on. So you referenced last week's game. You're exactly right. Combination of if they don't throw the ball or if Saquon catches it. Again, that's a conversation for another day. Saquon catches it. It's still not the right play. 3rd and 3 with the way your run game was, that's got to be run. They can't stop the clock. And if you can't get 3 yards with Saquon, now Kirk Cousins has under 50 seconds to go the length of the field, granted for a field goal, but that's just to tie you. They're probably only playing for a field goal. The likelihood, once you put them down by 6 with 1:45, now they're saying, I can't tie you. I'm going to try to go beat you, a touchdown to win it. They're so much more aggressive. So catch or not, didn't love the decision. But having said that, he catches that ball, they take a knee, and after all those rush yards, the Atlanta Falcons scored 10 points.
I need a full 2-hour podcast with you to talk about that. I'm thrilled that you touched on it because I feel like we're at a point where NFL coaches are now willing to make a gutsy call down in the red zone, but I still don't know how many coaches are willing to pass up a field goal to go up 6. Whereas what you just alluded to, there's plenty of people who will tell you teams will probably be more conservative playing for a field goal than knowing they need a touchdown to win the game. I wonder how far away we are from that, where teams are willing to be that much more aggressive, where they're passing up points potentially in an end game scenario.
Yeah, so, and I've said this before on our broadcast, and I know not everybody agrees with me, and I know not everyone, me and Dan Campbell, I guess we're kind of aligned a little bit, but, and everyone says, oh, it's risk taking. It's not. It's not risky, right? It's only risky when it doesn't go your way, which it's gambling, right? It doesn't mean it's not 100-0. The 55% is a 10 percentage win percentage advantage, 55-45. That's significant. So we're not looking for 100-0 decisions. We're looking for slightly more than half to tip the scales to whatever team's trying to do. So again, specifically for the last play, if you're willing to throw it on 3rd down, Nick Sirianni has proven he's willing to be a risk taker. Their run to the Super Bowl a couple years ago was built on 4th down. Now, quarterback sneak notwithstanding, they were an overly aggressive 3rd and 4th down team by nature. And it was really their greatest strength. And it was a big reason why they had the success they had. So he's willing to throw it on 3rd down and be aggressive. Good play call. It didn't work out. Things are going to happen. Then you got to be aggressive again on 4th down. You can't go from aggressive 3rd down to then conservative fourth down. If you're willing to throw that ball on third down, you need to be willing to say, if I don't come up short, I have another play on fourth down and we're going to try to end this game and Kirk Cousins is not touching the ball. That's the thing. And then the last piece of the equation, the human psychology of being down 3 with limited time is let's just get it to overtime. The human psychology of being down 6 with more time is we either win or lose. This is do or die, barring, right, I guess, an extra point miss. But let's just assume it's 90 plus, 5+% make. The human instincts of how that 2-minute drive starts is severely different. You're willing to throw the ball downfield. Defense is playing a little bit tighter. They feel like, they have to score. I can back up, keep it in front of me. If I'm trying to keep you out of field goal range, I'm not willing to play so conservative. If I'm playing for a field goal offensively, I am willing to be a little bit more conservative because I don't have as much yards to cover. So it's actually counterintuitive to want to be up 6 with more time than be up 3 with less time. If the idea is to win the game in regulation, nobody should ever try to win a game in overtime. It's a coin toss, especially in the regular season. Win the game in regulation at all costs. That's what should shape decision-making.
I know, like, these things always elicit strong reactions on either side. I'm sure it can be frustrating to dive into it sometimes, but I just deeply appreciate you being willing to carry this banner, so to speak, every week on TV and then even during the week. I love this type of stuff. I think it's a fantastic conversation. I had one more quick one for you. As much time as you spend in the league, you hear people talk about 24-hour rules, flush it, good or bad, quickly after the game. A loss like that, I mean, it felt like such a foregone conclusion for the last 5 or so minutes of that game up until it wasn't. Did you, during your career, pick up anything in terms of like how to effectively move past that, which is something the Eagles are going to have to do here to be ready for the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. On that fourth down stop from C.J. Gardner-Johnson, watching it live,
it felt over. The game felt over.
The stadium was electric. Sirianni's running down the field. I mean, that was a big moment in the game. Great energy. It felt like that took the wind out of Atlanta's sails. And then they go on that long touchdown drive, touchdown. Then they go on the long drive that eventually ends with the field goal. On second down, you're thinking this game is over. They can't stop the clock anymore. Or on third down, they can't stop the clock anymore. They've gotten under the 2-minute warning, which was critical. And this is all for nothing. But it's not. And that's what the NFL, and that's why coaches preach. You got to just keep playing. You got to keep playing. If the game's within reach, it's within reach. And as far as getting over it the next week, those are tough. And you can say what you want about, hey, Monday we're moving on and we got a big matchup this week against New Orleans. But again, we're talking about human beings. We're talking about guys who invest a lot of their time and energy into winning every single game. This is not the NBA. This is not Major League Baseball where there's a bazillion of them and we just move on to the next night. Like, this is going to eat at them until Sunday at 1:00. And Sunday at 1:00 is the first time they're really going to be able to say, okay, they come out and play well, and now you can move past it. But as we saw last year, all of a sudden it happens again. All of a sudden you're struggling closing games out, and those narratives start to stick. So I think this is a big week. I like Sirianni. I think he's a good coach. I like the way he's handled things since in his time there, and obviously he's had a lot of success. So it's going to be very interesting. What's his message? How aggressive does his team come out? Because they're going into a tough place to play on arguably, I don't want to say they're the best team in football, but they're certainly playing the best football in the NFL right now in the New Orleans Saints.
Eagles haven't been below 500 this early in the season since Sirianni's first year. So yeah, this could be uncharted territory for Philly. Can't wait to see how they respond. Can't wait to see how the Saints handle another big test. Greg, looking forward to the call, man. Thanks a lot.
You got it. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks as always to Greg Olsen for the time. And now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. The first of many this season. Really fun conversation with Peter Schrager about all things week 3.
All right, I'm so thrilled to welcome back a familiar face to the NFL on Fox podcast. One of my favorite segments from last year. We've got it back this year, the cheat sheet with Peter Schrager. Peter, we're back, man. What's going on?
It's great to see you. We saw each other in person week 1, wandering the Fox hallways on a Sunday. I'm with Julian Edelman, and I see you, and I say, "Oh, football's here. Let's go."
I was gonna say, like two ships passing in the night. Like y'all have to do that morning show so early, and I kind of roll in at 9:30, 10 with my coffee. I felt kind of guilty, honestly.
It's all good. I was on a plane back to New York about 3 minutes after we saw each other. So it's nice to be here virtually talking in a less frantic way.
I'm going to say slightly less hectic than when we're trying to get things done on a Sunday. All right, so this year on the cheat sheet, what we want to do, we're doing a little bit later in the week than we used to. We want to dive into some of the big matchups coming, heading into week 3, but this is the first time I've talked to you in a while. And it's not every week that a number 1 overall pick gets benched less than 20 career starts into his career. So before we launch into these matchups, Carolina benches Bryce Young. Andy Dalton's taken over for him. Panthers facing the Las Vegas Raiders this week. I mean, what do you make of this? Like, I can't say I'm shocked that Bryce Young got benched, but I am shocked that it happened just 2 weeks into the season.
All right. So I'd say I'm doing a little original reporting, a lot of texting over this in the past 24 hours. Here's how I would explain this. Nobody wanted to bench Bryce Young 2 weeks into the second year of his career. Bryce Young is the first overall pick to ever start week 1 of a second season of his career and be benched by the end of the second week. So this is historic. There's no precedent. David Tepper wants this to work. Dan Morgan, the GM, wants this to work. Nobody more than Dave Canales, the new head coach, wants this to work. In fact, I interviewed Canales on my podcast this summer, and I said, like, you've resurrected Geno Smith. You've resurrected Baker Mayfield's career.
Right, that's his thing.
With Bryce Young, it's your thing. You're the quarterback whisperer. And he's like, I like to love up the quarterback, give him everything he needs, mentally, spiritually. And really, we're talking 2024 mental health stuff here of like, there's encouragement. This isn't the old days where you just get screamed at and you get told you're terrible and go sit on the bench. Like, if there was ever a coach who wanted to see it work, it was Dave Canales. There's a rub to that, though. There's 52 other grown men in the locker room, and they go to practice every day, and they see things every day, and they want to compete on Sundays. And there's a business element to this where you can't lose by 30 and 20 points every single week and put out that product when they're trying to actually make profit as an NFL franchise and put a competitive outfit on the field. It has to be so much worse than we even see and know for them to go to these measures and bench Bryce Young. In my eyes, this was a way to potentially salvage the season and get some competitive football with another option, in this case being Andy Dalton, and B, show that locker room that like the best man is going to play. Nothing's given here. The best man's going to play, and every one of you is fighting for your jobs, but you will also have those jobs if you earn it on a week-to-week basis. And we see it as a coaching staff, and we're objective enough to know that the best chance we have to win and to potentially salvage this season and give you as professionals the best chance to make the most out of your careers is to have Andy Dalton out there and not Bryce Young. But I could tell you, this is not what Tepper wants. This is not what Canales wants. And it's not what Dan Morgan wants. Like, this is not some concerted attack on Bryce Young. And say what you want about the merits of the decision. You have to at least respect that they're doing the best man will play. And that's what they think is happening here. And Andy Dalton's going to be given that opportunity.
I love that. And I think it gets lost that, like, I mean, there's 60 personalities, there's 60 human emotions and egos that go into this. And like, it's easy for us to say like, oh, you got to play your number 1 overall pick. But like, if you lose those guys, your season's going in the ditch faster than it already looks like it has in Carolina.
No doubt. And, you're talking about, it's not even time to cover the pools in Carolina yet. Like, people still have swimming pools. There's no apple picking or pumpkin patch yet. Like, we're still in September. This is drastic, unprecedented. And yet they thought it was the best way to maybe save the locker room, save the season, and maybe save Bryce Young in the process, take a step back and try something different, because being out there, he's regressed. He didn't look good the first
No,
2
I
weeks.
mean, he looked like a broken quarterback. And one last thing on Bryce is I applaud the Panthers for playing this straight up and avoiding the politics of a number one overall pick. But it is still unavoidably political. Like, you still did just bench the guy that you traded up for. You gave up all this draft capital. Then you drafted him number one overall. Like, is it realistic to think they could just plug him back into the lineup later? Or do you think that this ultimately ends with Bryce Young somehow being on another team?
Oh, I absolutely think there's a plan to get him back in the lineup. I would hope to think that he can use this as some sort of motivation. And who knows, barring any Andy Dalton, 7-game win streak or something crazy, like I would imagine we're going to see Bryce Young again. This might be temporary and just a chance for a wake up call and say, okay, well, we just need to stop the bleeding here. And Andy knows that. He's a veteran. Andy's going to come in and do the best job he can. But the last we saw of Andy Dalton, he wasn't exactly lighting it up. But I looked to Cleveland last year. Who knows? Joe Flacco goes in the game and everyone wrote his career off, and he found a way to salvage that season for Cleveland. Maybe they look at it that way and say, we just need a veteran. We're actually much better than what you're seeing on Sundays. We really are. It's just our quarterback is the pits right now, and we got to find a way to upgrade at that position. And the guy in house is Andy Dalton. The one thing I would say, Bryce Young, it's his second year. It's his second offense. It's his second head coach. I was covering the NFL when Alex Smith got in the league, and the first 6 years of Alex Smith's career was a different coach, different coordinator. He stinks. He's a bust. And then eventually it figured itself out. He was playing in an NFC championship game for the 49ers and would actually go on to be a really good NFL quarterback despite a rough start. I'm hoping it doesn't take 6 years for Bryce Young, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are examples of guys who have had some frustrating starts to their career who have found a way out of that hole.
As somebody who admired his game a lot in college, I'm rooting for him. But I mean, unprecedented. It's hard to imagine right now. But hey, if I've learned anything in my brief time,
a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks on it though, right? Like I do the draft stuff for NFL Network. You do the stuff for Fox. Kuiper's out there and he's got this passionate thing on ESPN yesterday. It made a lot of waves and it was great. It was well said. Find me one person, literally one. And if it's Louis Riddick and I missed it, or if it was Todd McShay and I missed it, and it was someone else that, has a blog that I didn't catch, find me one person that was like CJ Stroud is hands down the better quarterback than Bryce Young. And I will commend that person, because we all have hindsight vision now. And it's all like, well, of course, look at Stroud. How dumb. Why would they trade all that? And it's the worst trade ever. But like, I don't know. Everyone it's a $1 billion industry, this draft industry. And just about everyone I know had Bryce Young ranked higher than CJ Stroud.
I'm even willing to allow for the thought that, like, I'm sure there were plenty of people that had Stroud above Bryce, but it was like a neck and neck thing. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Like, it wasn't, I don't think there was anybody that was just like, what are we even talking about this Bama kid for? You know what I mean? Like, at the very least, you saw them as close prospects, and I'll own it. A huge whiff by me.
Me
love
too.
The guys.
I loved him
game.
out of college, and talking to his teammates at Alabama, like they're all in the draft process. They raved about him. Saban raved about him. It's been about as bad a start for any rookie quarterback I can imagine. That includes Zach Wilson and all the other guys that we just absolutely drag in this media. Like Bryce has been that bad. And at some point, if we're going to treat him as a legitimate number one overall pick, like we have to say it out loud. And in this case, it has to be said that he has not been good. And some of that has to be on him. Some of it has to.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know that the Panthers did a wonderful job putting a good situation around him, but I've seen plenty of number one overall picks in crappy situations look like the guy. I mean, as very recently, Burrow did this, Kyler did this, Justin Herbert did this. I know Justin wasn't number one overall, but
I get you though.
We've seen great quarterbacks go into shit situations and make chicken salad, and it just hasn't been the case for Bryce Young. So we'll see where it goes. No pressure, Andy Dalton, but now you got Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, and the rest of that Raiders defense to deal with. We'll see where that goes. All right, I do want to pick your brain on a few of the really big matchups in week 3, and we'll start where I always have to start. Fortunately, unfortunately, whatever. I love to get other people's perspectives on the Cowboys, Peter, because I I lived it for too long.
I
I'm way
know.
too close to it. My vision is a little bit skewed when it comes to this team. So it does feel like the sky is falling in Dallas a little bit after that performance against the Saints. What's your more macro view of what the hell's going on with these guys?
Last week must have been conflicting for you with Saints
Oh,
Cowboys. We
it's
didn't talk
always
beforehand, but
a nightmare when the Saints
that's
play the
gotta be.
Cowboys.
Um, we work for Fox. Cowboys are a big team on Fox. We always like to highlight Fox, but when you put the spectacle of these things going on before the game, I'm at the Fox pregame show and I'm standing there and it's 11 a.m. Eastern. The game doesn't kick off till 1, and I'm looking at one of the small monitors and it's Mike Tyson, it's a Paul brother,
Yeah.
it's Tom Brady, it's Charlotte, it's Steven, it's
Yeah.
Jerry, and then there's this other visual of the door busting. They open up the doors and it's a million Cowboys fans rushing to their seat. It's like this is a spectacle. And then you give up 6 touchdowns on 6 consecutive possessions. And I think we're doing this on Wednesday. I think Alvin Kamara or Shaheed just scored another touchdown. They might as well. Like
They did.
it was
Yeah,
as
they did.
bad a homecoming or as bad as a home opener as you could have imagined. And it came with all that hoopla. So if you're not a Cowboys person and you're watching from the outside, your immediate thought is, oh, it's the same old Cowboys. It's the same crap. It's a lot of bells and whistles, and they're going to win 9, 10 games, maybe 11 or 12, and they'll host a playoff game and they'll likely lose because when we do all this stuff, it's more about the Brady's on the field and we're posting on Instagram than it is, all right, the Saints team just kicked the crap out of the Carolina Panthers. Do we have a defensive game plan? Like one thing might not be related to the other, but from the outside looking in, it's like egg on your face. Like, here we go. We're celebrating the Cowboys, but sure enough, the Cowboys are broken. And like, Zim really shut a lot of people up week 1 against Cleveland. But there were a lot of doubters going into this thing saying that Zimmer hasn't coached in 2 years. His defense, we'll see how it goes. Like maybe he unlocks a bunch of other young players besides Micah, but they have to really fix this thing quick because what Lamar and Derrick Henry and what Todd Monken have in store is a running attack and a play action and a run pass option attack that has given some really good defensive coaches fits over the last few years. I am shocked at what happened against New Orleans defensively, and I am curious to see if that was a one-time deal or if that's what these Cowboys fans are going to see again this weekend, which I hope we're not doing a circus beforehand.
Can I offer you my hot take on the Cowboys? Which,
yeah,
the defense is why they lost that game. They gave up touchdowns on their first 6 possessions. It was atrocious. If you're even trying to talk about Dak in the aftermath of that game, what are we doing? But I still come out of it. I think I'm more concerned about the offense than I am about the defense.
talk about it.
We've seen the Dallas defense do this. Like they're gonna crap the bed a couple times a year. I don't trust the run defense, but like I do trust Mike Zimmer to make it look better than it did on Sunday. Then I look at the Dallas offense and like Dak's under pressure a ton. You're starting 2 rookies up front. The running back room has combined for 1 explosive run in 2 games. Jake Ferguson's dealing with an injury, and it looked like an offense that only has 1 good player in CeeDee Lamb, and that's what it is. Like their only meaningful gain of week 2 was CeeDee Lamb taking a perfect pass and making 2 guys miss and going to the house. Like I don't know. This doesn't feel sustainable, and I think Dallas is only as good as their ability to score 24 plus points a week, and I don't know. It's early in the season to be panicking, but I did not like what I saw.
I ask you, like, do you envision like a game in late December and it's Zeke Elliott toting the rock?
I
and
don't.
It's Brandon Cooks as the number 2. Like, this is a long season, and those guys are not young. Like it's daunting when you look at that roster and just how many unknown factors there are besides Dak and CD on offense.
We're not trying to completely ignore the Ravens. I mean, they haven't started 0-2 since 2015, so truly in uncharted territory in the Lamar Jackson era. But at the same time, like I can't bring myself to be worried. I mean, I would love for the Ravens to stop blowing fourth quarter leads. They've done it 5 times in the last 3 seasons. But at the same, like, I don't know. I need to see more before I'm overly worried. I do trust Lamar. I trust John Harbaugh. It's a small sample size, but this team still seems fine to me. What do you think?
Well, at some point, that is more than a coincidence. No team in the NFL has given up more 10-point fourth quarter lead since 2021 than the Ravens. No team in the NFL has given up more 7-point fourth quarter lead since 2021 than the Baltimore Ravens. And it happened again. Like, it's like the Grim Reaper just comes out there when they're taking a big lead against a team that they should beat. They should beat the Raiders. Raiders have Gardner Minshew and a bunch of unknown players besides Devontae Adams on offense, and they marched.
And they
right
looked
up and down
like
the
they
field.
were going to with like 10
They had
minutes to
them.
play in this game.
They had him on the ropes, but it's not enough. And it was the same thing with the Browns last year. Same thing with the Colts the year before. Like, they lose these games, and Harbaugh is supposed to be this like masterful, clock management, special teams technician, and it happens too often. But I'm with you. Unless look, 0-3 is an insurmountable hole. Basically, you don't make the playoffs after 0-3. It's very rare. I think the
One
Jaguars
team in the last 20 years.
Who was it? Was it the Jags or was it the Chargers? Like someone like that. Right?
The 2018 Houston Texans did it.
Dang, I don't remember that team. Honestly, I have no recollection.
It was
I know
back when Deshaun Watson was him.
Yeah, it was him. When the Chargers had Seau and Stan Humphries, I think they started off 0-4 and made it in like 94, 92. I think that's the one we always point to when you're 0-4, but you can't lose this one if you're the Ravens, just because the AFC is too good and the AFC North is going to be too competitive. So yeah, I have a problem with them closing out games, but they lost by a toe in Arrowhead and they should have won last week against the Raiders. It's different than the Cowboys, who showed some real reasons for concern last week.
Ravens a 1.5-point road favorite last time I checked, which is
Wow.
wild. When you think about how much the Cowboys have been winning home games by prior to their last 2 games, coincidentally. Yeah. Interesting to see that. Let's take it to another big one, the Detroit Lions and the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to steal Bill Simmons's bit here. We're not going to guess the line, but do you want to, if you haven't seen
I have
it,
no idea. Where's the game being played?
The game is in Phoenix, and the interesting thing isn't the line to me. I think the Lions are 3-point road favorites.
Okay. So that we guess the line. All right.
Do you want to guess the over under on this game?
Oh, okay. I would say it's somewhere in the mid to high 40s.
It's 52.5, Peter.
Wow.
Which is the highest of this young season.
Wow.
It's not like historically high or anything, but when you see a number that starts with
Lions
5,
Cardinals, yeah.
Yeah,
No, wow.
So
that tells me
a lot of points on deck.
Vegas sees 2 really good offenses, 2 really good young offensive coordinators in Ben Johnson and Drew Petzing. But to me, that was some explosion last week in Arizona for a team that hadn't beaten the Rams in their own building in 9 games to just come out there and smack the crap out of them. Had to feel so good, and it looked so good. Really fun. Arizona put up points against Buffalo too. Like, that's a legit offense, man.
I know. We lean on this a lot in the early season, but okay, I don't take too much from what they did to the Rams just because of how depleted the Rams are at this point in the season. But you mentioned it, I know they lost, but a valiant effort in Buffalo. How seriously should we take this team? Because even at 1-1, they've looked really impressive, at least on the offensive side of the ball, both outings. I mean, Kyler Murray looks amazing.
Week. I think it's a good test for both teams, kind of a good temperature check, right? Like, Lions, everyone's Super Bowl favorite out of the NFC. If you're not picking the Niners, you're picking the Lions. Cardinals, everyone had been in the bottom of the league. Let's see. If Arizona wins 2-1, we got a really cool story. If they lose, they're 1-2, and they're the Arizona Cardinals.
I mentioned this a lot in the preseason of there's nowhere for the Lions to go upward but to make the Super Bowl. The trajectory has just been so incredible under Dan Campbell. Do you think it's any kind of psychological hurdle or something that they have to adjust to, that the Detroit Lions are a game that every team is going to get up for? I mean, eventually we got to get over this rags to riches story, and we will. But that is a new place for everybody in that organization to be, is like teams are looking at their schedule like, oh, we got the Lions this week. Like, let's put on a show, baby.
Yeah, look, that becomes a thing when you're the scrappy, grit, salty, all these things that Dan Campbell has preached when you're the underdogs. But now you're kind of like the big dogs. Do you still say you've got grit and you're salty and we're a blue collar team for a blue collar town? Or are you living in a different tax bracket now as everyone's favorite to go to the Super Bowl? How does it play with your head when suddenly you're the hunted, not the hunters? That's a really good question. This is a great test for them because they're supposed to win this game, but it's not easy. They're on the road and they're coming off a really tough loss where I think they had opportunities in that game to beat Tampa, and clock management at the end of the first half, which has haunted Dan Campbell for years. And then at the end of the game, not getting enough yardage on that final play before the last possession, like that's Jared Goff. And that's the knock on him, is that like sometimes he won't make the big pass when you need it most. And he does come up just 4 yards short. Let's see what happens in Arizona. It's a good game.
Typically, a bad day in the red zone in the NFL is like 1 for 4 or 2 for 5. The Lions went 1 for 7 in the red zone, which like it's almost like college football where you're like, this is how upsets happen. Like, all credit to the Bucks, but man, the Lions had to lose some sleep about the opportunities that they missed. All right, I want to finish up really quickly. I mentioned the Rams. I don't know. I would love to know how Sean McVay is feeling these days, because like it's just got to feel like the worst kind of deja vu. Their whole team is on IR. They lose badly to the Arizona Cardinals, and guess what, guys? Your reward for that is the Niners now. Like,
Right.
I mean, like, Sean McVay's talked a lot about mental health and like the edge that you need to do this job. I'm not trying to put anything on him. I'm just saying I wouldn't blame him if he was thinking about how he considered retiring, just because of how awful this season has gotten out for the LA Rams.
Yeah, and already it's like, do you just pull the plug on the thing and say, all right, let's just get out of this? I saw Mina Kimes presented a trade to the Raiders for Matthew Stafford. Then I saw on FS1 Chase Daniels got some trade, a 3-way trade to get rid of Matthew Stafford.
Yeah,
but like this is we're in week 3 here, but it's gotten to that point. 0-2, tough loss week 1, obviously, but you know, I've got a lot of sources in LA, a lot of friends who work for that organization, both players, coaches, executives, and they were like, gosh, like that walking out of that locker room, it was like a mash unit. You had Puka all banged up. You had Steve Avila all banged up. You have really good players banged up. And then in week 2, you add in Cooper Kupp. So now we're at the stage where I'm getting texts from people who I trust who are like, hey, I'm in a fantasy football league. Like, do you think Sean wants to go with DeMarcus Robinson or Ty Johnson? I'm like, we're at that stage right now, huh?
Oof.
And it's week 3. Some injuries are just too insurmountable. And gosh, I'm not saying they can't win, but you've got a couple of tough games up ahead. It doesn't get any easier. And San Francisco's always giving them nightmares in that building, except for that famous NFC Championship game where they came back in the fourth quarter. So like, I don't know, man. You're asking me if it's that. I don't think any team has had a rougher first 2 weeks of the season than the LA Rams.
I'll say this. I've done this for too long to say that the Rams can't win this game.
I know.
But if the Rams win this game, then we got to have a real dialogue about the San Francisco 49ers.
Isn't it funny how it goes? It's like,
yeah,
all right, now let's swing it to the other guys. What the hell's going on there? But like, yeah, I'd be shocked if the Niners didn't come out and played a little better than they did in Minnesota last week.
Always something to look forward to in the NFC West. Yeah, it'll be weird for some reason. I don't know. Maybe the Niners. I mean, I would guess the Niners handle their business, but always weird when you get into the division. Peter, so good to have you back, man. Love talking to you, and we will catch up with you for week 4.
I'm gonna take a photo of us. We're back in action, brother.
Back
I love
in
it.
action,
All right.
2024,
Beautiful.
baby.
Yeah,
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
2 more of the biggest matchups for week 3 will feature 2 AFC South teams facing big tests on the road. That's why this is On the Road, presented by Honda. Dreams are unstoppable. You know who else is unstoppable? My guy, Fox Sports reporter Ben Arthur, who's jumping on with me now to preview these 2 games. In the early window on Sunday, we've got the Houston Texans going up to face the Minnesota Vikings. And then the early game on the Monday night doubleheader, the Jacksonville Jaguars going to face the Buffalo Bills. Let's talk about it. Ben, how you doing, my guy?
Doing well, Dave. Good to see you. It's been a little while.
It has. It's good to see you too, my dude. And where else would I start with you but our guys, the Houston Texans, which actually, the more I dug into this matchup, I realized, considering this is a cross-conference game, this is not a divisional rivalry. These are not teams that play all the time. There are so many eerie connections between the Houston Texans and the Minnesota Vikings, whether you want to talk about the obvious Stephon Diggs return to Minneapolis. This is the game with Danielle Hunter and Jonathan Grenard, the two edge rushers who swapped teams in the offseason. These were the teams that swapped draft picks, and that's why JJ McCarthy is a Minnesota Viking, is a trade with the Houston Texans. And I'll even throw in one more for you, Ben. Blake Cashman, the linebacker who's off to an incredible start with the Vikings, was a Houston Texan last year. So a lot of storylines to pull from. I'll just throw it to you. Which one of those excites you the most?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think honestly, it's just the player flip-flops, right? Because these are going to be two teams, even though they're in different conferences, that will know each other really well because standout players on both sides were on the other side just last year. So I think in when sometimes when you have NFC, AFC games, the teams can maybe catch each other off guard a little bit, but in this case, I don't think you're going to have that as much, just because really key players on both sides kind of know how the other team operates. So I think that's going to be fun. I know it's been a minute since Stephon Diggs was in Minnesota, but that's another fun storyline. I don't know how many times he's been back in Minneapolis since he left for Buffalo, but that's another one as well. But I just think, to the familiarity between these two teams just from the 2023 season, I think that should make for a really fun game, and two teams who are off to a good start as well.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by that main swap being Danielle Hunter for Jonathan Grenard. Like, both teams had double-digit sack guys. They both let them walk for a different pass rusher, and they're both off to really nice starts with their new teams. I'm kind of seeing this, we love to assign winners and losers when stuff like this happens. I feel like both guys are going to be A-okay where they're at. Like, maybe this is a situation where everybody's happy, everybody gets to win. Grenard has a sack in Minneapolis already, and obviously Danielle Hunter was everywhere against the Chicago Bears the other night. Seems like everybody's going to be okay in this situation.
Yeah, Dave, and I think through two games, both these teams have shown an ability to get after the passer with both guys kind of leading the charge. Like in the Texans case, Danielle Hunter has formed already a formidable edge tandem with Will Anderson. I mean, we saw what they did to Caleb Williams on Sunday night, just putting him through that. I mean, 36 pressures, that's insane. And then actually on the Minnesota side with John Grenard leading that team just up front. I mean, I think they're number one in pressure rate, number two in total pressures. And so, yeah, like you said, I mean, I think both these guys, they're fitting in pretty seamlessly on the other side.
Okay, we did mention the Diggs and the Diggs return to Minnesota, and I think it's a natural comparison to talk about Stephon Diggs going back, and now Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in football, and I'm sure all eyes are going to be on that. But I want to ask you this. I got a take for you, and to take people behind the curtain, you and I both write for FoxSports.com. We put together positional rankings ahead of each season. We as a staff ranked Justin Jefferson number one in the league. I don't think that's a crazy conclusion to come to. But Ben, Nico Collins finished just outside of our top 10. And I'm not ready to say that was a mistake on our part, but maybe we should be ready to talk about this guy as a top 10 receiver in the NFL. He's off to an incredible start. 252 yards through 2 games is easily best in the league. He was already phenomenal, had a 1,200-yard season last year. And it kind of looks like he's leveled up his game again. Like, do we need to be starting that hype train already on Nico Collins as a maybe even better than top 10? Like, honestly, he looks
Yeah.
like a top 5-ish type of guy already.
Yeah, Dave, I'll gladly hop on that hype train with you just in terms of being terms of Nico Collins being top 10. I mean, as you said, he's made strides. As great as he was last year, right? Like a 1400 receiving yards or something around there, and has continued to ascend. I mean, we made so much about uh this trio of wide receivers this team has, and for good reason, right? You bring in Stephon Diggs in the mix, you get uh Tank Dell back from injury, but he's been their number one receiver. I mean, he is almost, he looks borderline unstoppable at times downfield. I mean, and I think the thing about him too, like he has the speed, but he also has the size and the play strength. He's on those in breaking routes, those post routes, those digs. I mean, he's kind of doing whatever he wants down the field, and he's super fun to watch. I think he maybe kind of slid under the radar, so to speak, because I think Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs were maybe bigger names nationally than Nico Collins entering the year. But man, he's looked really special, and it just kind of emphasizes, right, just how deep and talented Houston is at these skill positions. And we haven't even talked about what Joe Mixon did for the Texans in the opener. I know he's kind of hurt right now, the whole ankle injury out of that kind of supposed hip drop tackle. But yeah, Nico Collins has looked great, and I'm really curious to see how this is going to look moving forward, because as great as Nico Collins has looked, they haven't really been able to get Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell going to this point. I mean, Stephon Diggs only has 70 yards. He does have the 2 touchdowns, but just 70 yards. Tank Dell is under 40 yards through two games. So Bobby Slovic, he's going to have to figure out a way to get all these playmakers the ball. But I think when you have that kind of talent, um, it's kind of like pick your poison, right? And I think each week it's going to be a different guy. But yeah, huge fan of Nico. So I'm right there on the hype train with you.
It might be a different guy each week, and it's a long season, but I mean, man, what a start. And I think you're exactly right. We went into the season thinking of this as a trio, and it still is a highly talented trio, but maybe we weren't giving enough credence to the idea that one of these guys, being Nico, is a little bit above where the other two guys are at this point in their career. Should be a really fun one. Texans, a 2-point road favorite up at US Bank Stadium in Minnesota. Can't wait for that one. The other one we're going to be waiting a little bit for, that's the first Monday night game. Ben, can you help me make sense of the Jacksonville Jaguars? I know what the Buffalo Bills are all about. I feel very confident in who they are. I have no idea if the Jacksonville Jaguars are good, decent, bad. I don't know. Can you do anything for me as we head into this big Monday night game?
Yeah, David, it's really mind-boggling because I think going into this year, I was fully convinced that this was the most talented team that Trevor Lawrence has had around him since kind of the time he got there. But man, it is so unbelievable how they have zero answers to this point, and it's even more unbelievable because this is supposed to be a year where they start to click more, right? This is the third year of Doug Peterson, and I hear those post-game press conferences, him talking about them needing to practice better, uh, have a greater attention to detail, having communication issues in terms of getting the play in terms of at the huddle. All these things, man, these were the same things we were talking about at the end of last year when they just completely imploded, blowing an 8-3 record to start the year, right? They were en route to the AFC's number one seed and just kind of fell apart down the stretch. And so far to this point in 2024, it's been more of the same. And it's really hard to put your finger on it. I think for me, the offensive line, as much talent as I do think they have around Lawrence, was a little bit concerned with the O line just because of their struggles in short yardage last season and in the red zone and the run game issues. And they basically ran it back with the same starting unit. I know Mitch Morse, who's in Buffalo previously, is kind of like their new center. But overall, I wasn't totally convinced about that unit. And I think so far we've seen their gamble on essentially the same offensive line kind of not work in their favor. So I think that really stands out to me. And it doesn't help like in against Cleveland when you have Evan Ingram who uh, tweaks his hamstring right after the inactives come out.
Yeah,
I
talk
mean,
about
how
bad
much more
timing.
unlucky? Yeah, how much more unlucky can you get? Um, so yeah, this is a team. It's really hard to kind of explain what's going on there. Again, the offensive ineptitude doesn't really make sense because this is year three of Doug Peterson, year three of Trevor Lawrence in that system. But I will say, Dave, one bright spot has been your LSU guy, Brian Thomas Jr. I think they need to get him the ball more because
Yes,
whenever he
please.
has touched the ball, good things have happened. So I think that's a positive for them.
Yeah, I think if I'm looking for two things to hang my hat on, I think the Jags defense has been improved through 2 weeks. And I think Brian Thomas Jr. looks electric if they can get him the ball a little bit more often. I don't feel great about this, especially on the road at Buffalo. Although I did think, Ben, and I think we talked about it too, the Jags got right in London against the Bills last year and got a big win there. Crazier things have happened, but I just, you would go broke betting on this team to do what's expected of them. So that's just kind of where I'm at with the Jags, where I'm just like, best of luck, guys. We'll see what you can do. I can't say I'm holding my breath, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is really a must win for them, though. Like, kind of regardless, and you look at right after that too. They have the Texans, who are clearly the best team in the AFC South, and right there with the Chiefs in terms of best with the in the AFC overall. And then they have another division game after that with the Colts. So if they don't get this one in Buffalo, it could start to look really, really bad. So yeah, they have to figure out a way to get this one. Uh, and yeah, like I said, I think it's going to start offensively with getting Brian Thomas Jr. the ball more, and then Christian Kirk, $72 million receiver. He has 2 catches through 2 games. You need to get him more involved in the offense. He's been a safety valve for Trevor Lawrence in their time together. So I think you need to in this time for the Jags when there's so much going wrong, you need to stick with what has worked in the past. So when Evan Ingram comes back, I mean, you'll get him, but I think working Christian Kirk a bit and then leaning on kind of what one of the few things that have worked to this point and getting Brian Thomas Jr. the ball.
We talked about it earlier on the show with Peter Schrager. I mean, 0-3 is very close to a season ender. It's possible, but statistically very, very unlikely. I don't know that I trust the Jags to dig out of an 0-3 hole of all teams, so it feels that much more important. We'll see how it goes. Ben Arthur, I always appreciate talking to you, man. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Appreciate you, Dave. Thank you.
Time now for our Super Six powered by DraftKings. You know the drill. If you haven't played Super Six on foxsports.com and the Fox Sports app, fantastic way to win yourself some amazing prizes during an NFL Sunday. There's 6 bets. You take your best shot. If you hit, you win big. It's a ton of fun. Choices between different games, different props. I'm going to help you out with one that looks obvious to me, he says with so much optimism. We'll see what happens. But if we're looking at a prop for which quarterback will finish with the most passing yards, and these are your choices on the app, it's Brock Purdy against the Rams, Lamar Jackson against the Cowboys, the other side of that matchup, Dak Prescott versus the Baltimore Ravens, or Jalen Hurts against the New Orleans Saints. I got to roll with Brock Purdy against a completely depleted Rams depth chart. Like, go look at the Rams injury report. and tell me how LA figures to stop Brock Purdy and this San Francisco offense. I know Debo's hurt. I get it. I don't care. There's enough there that Brock Purdy can do some work. Brock Purdy threw for 300 plus yards against Minnesota, and that was a Minnesota team that beat San Francisco up. Like, they had a wonderful day, and Purdy still finished with 300 yards. So against a Rams team that has an IR report that looks like a CVS receipt, I'm taking Brock Purdy. I think he can hit 300 again. And, check back in with me on Sunday night to see how well that aged, or don't, depending on how it goes. But I feel really, really good about this one. We'll see how it goes. Go check out Super 6, foxsports.com, and the Fox Sports app. Moving on to our last bit of business before we wrap up the show. That would be our hurry up offense. 9 more games to get to. Not a lot of show left. That's why we designed a 2-minute drill. Get you one quick nugget, little bit of information about each matchup before we move you on to your weekend, get you out of here. And with that, a much easier slate this week. There were 10 early games in week 2. It's a little more balanced in week 3. Should be a little less hectic. We'll see if I can get in under the clock. Let's start it off. Chiefs at Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have the worst quarterback pressure rate in the NFL through 2 weeks. Chiefs have left tackle problems. I don't think it'll be a big issue in this matchup. I like the Chiefs on the road. The late Monday game, we talked about the early one, but let's go to the Commanders at Bengals. Battle of 2 LSU Heisman winners. I had to throw that in there. Joe Burrow's never lost in week 3. More importantly, the Commanders are allowing an average passer rating of 127. I think Joe and the Bengals are going to get right at home. Chargers at Steelers on Sunday. Top 2 scoring defenses in the NFL. 2 groups that have only allowed a touchdown each in their first 2 games. Something's got to give. It's the Steelers home opener. They've been on the road for 2 weeks. I will take the Steelers to get the win in a slugfest. Bears at Colts, Super Bowl rematch. Anthony Richardson's completion percentage of 49% is the lowest in the NFL. By whatever metric you want to use, the Bears have a top 5-6 defense in the league. I'll take the Bears to give Anthony Richardson a long day in a sloppy win. Packers at Titans. Tennessee's allowed the lowest yardage total of any 0-2 team in the last 30 years. I think they're going to give Malik Willis a long day, a rude homecoming for Malik Willis. Call it an upset if you want. I'll take Tennessee. Giants at Browns. Browns have allowed 38 pressures through 2 weeks. That's second worst in the league. Think it's going to be a long day for Deshaun Watson. I just like the Browns more than the Giants, though. I'll take Cleveland. Broncos at Bucks. Would be the first 3-0 Bucks start since 05. Speaking of 05, if Bo Nix doesn't throw a touchdown in this game, he'll be the first-round draft pick not to do it in his first 3 starts since Alex Smith. That's brutal, and he's got to do it against Todd Bowles. No, thank you. I'm taking the Tampa Bay Bucks. Dolphins at Seahawks. Dolphins are 1-4 without Tua. I'm not going to think about it too hard other than that. I like the Seahawks at home. And wrapping it up with the Thursday night game, this would be the Jets' first consecutive wins against the New England Patriots since 08 and 09. It's going to be a defensive slugfest. I will take the Jets to do it at home. That does it for our 2-minute drill. Better performance, at least. I think I came in under the wire. We're not actually trying to win football games here. Kirk Cousins might be ashamed, but I'm going to call it a win. That does it for our show. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Follow us on all the socials. Get yourself subscribed on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, so you'll be ready for the Monday episode. Our week 3 recap is coming at you. We will have news, reactions, takes from every game on the slate. We'll be talking to all the Fox broadcast crews. So much coming your way on the other side of the weekend. Until then, as always, I appreciate it so much, and I'll talk to you real soon.